If you are trying to buy your own house and you don't have the money, there are ways for you to raise the money.
In this program, we're going to look at mortgages and loans from house builders as a way to raise funds.
The Okri Property Show, shedding light on property investments around the world. Brought to you by Menvo Homes Limited.
Welcome to the Okri Property Show. My name is Godwin Okri.
And I am Fiona Kirawo.
Investing in the housing market is the surest way to increase your wealth. This program seeks to highlight first-time buyers, seasoned investors, introducing them into the Nigerian real estate market.
And in this episode, we're going to explore how to raise cash through a mortgage from your bank or from the sellers in order to get that house.
Absolutely.
This is going to be exciting.
It will be amazing. We're going to look at mundane and highly strategic ways to raise funds. And this program is going to highlight key on that.
Before we do that, let's go into our Did You Know section with Yinka Nathan.
The beautiful Nathan.
Yes.
The Okri Property Show. Hello viewers. Did you know that only 5% of all property transactions in Nigeria are funded by bank loans or mortgages? Now, in spite of this low mortgage availability, did you know that the Nigerian real estate market is now the new property hotspot for overseas investors? That's good news. Well, the Nigerian property market is now the new rock and roll. We could dance to that, don't you think so? Yes. And did you also know that one of the surest ways of creating wealth, one of the surest ways of smiling to the banks is by investing in property? You can never go wrong. Well, let's turn to the overseas market. Did you know that the Bank of England is worried that Brexit will dampen the British property market? That's sad news, isn't it? Well, a little bit of gossip. I like to gossip. Did you know that Michael Jackson's Neverland Ranch is now being sold for a whopping $31 million? That's a lot of money. Well, the truth is, the late singer purchased that property in the year 1987 for only $19.5 million. You see, that shows you can never go wrong investing in property. Well, that's what we have for you today. We're still on top. Join us at the top.
The Okri Property Show.
Welcome back. Today we're going to talk about mortgages to enable you buy your own house.
Fiona, do you know that the real reason why a lot of people cannot climb the property ladder is because of lack of funds?
Oh, yeah.
And so let's draw the attention of the numbers to our viewers.
Yeah.
The average wages at the moment is 18,000 naira. Would you believe that? And the average property price in Nigeria is 35 million naira. Average property price in Lagos is 65 million. So there's a disconnect between wages, which is low on the one hand, and property price, which is high on the other. That's why it's important for them to be able to get mortgage to bridge that gap.
True.
Climb the
And
property
that is
ladder.
why the only way for you to overcome the problem of insufficient funds is by you going to your bank to apply for that loan. They'll give it to you, as in if you don't have enough money, it is possible for you to still get that property or house that you are dreaming about.
Absolutely.
And remember, a mortgage is a loan the bank gives you to use to purchase your own house or property.
Rent and buying a property. What are your thoughts on that?
Definitely, of course, having your own property is everyone's dream. Just that people feel like it's impossible. That is why this show is here. But if you are paying rent for 1 million naira or 2 million naira, if you can save that money to 10 years, it is so much. That's 10 million naira saved. That's 2 million naira saved. And then you can you can qualify to get a mortgage.
I see what you're saying. You're absolutely right. So that
And then if you're out of Lagos, you can even get your own property.
that's correct. And that 1 or 2 million would be a deposit for you. So you have the deposit, you get the mortgage, and the combination of those income would place you on the property ladder. Very well said.
Very true. And right about now, let's hear the views of investment experts about mortgages.
The Okre Property Show.
Current position of mortgages in Nigeria, it's still at an infantile stage. However, it is growing. I would say approximately 2 to 5% of our bank loans will be considered mortgages. While if you look at our counterparts in the developed world, you're looking more about 90%.
Yes.
You know, it's a lot higher out there.
I see. And how can first-time buyers get a mortgage here in Nigeria?
Right. First-time buyers, it's a tough one for the society we're in. There are certain prerequisites that need to be in place, okay? There needs to be regular income. It needs to be sustainable income. For a first-time buyer, which will be someone just, probably in their first job, second job, probably 5-10 years out of uni, it's tough. But it's possible. For example, in Axis Bank, what we do is if you bring in a property, we try and make sure that your monthly payments are a maximum of 33.3% of your monthly income to avoid you having cash flow issues. If you are earning 100,000 naira a month and your mortgage monthly is 100,000 naira, it's not going to work. No. However, if you're earning 100,000 naira a month and your mortgage is approximately 33,000 naira, it's sustainable. Yeah. You can pay your mortgage and you can live your life. The only difference is you are making sacrifices towards your house.
And where can an investor go to get a mortgage?
You can go to a mortgage bank. You can come to a commercial bank like ours. In a commercial bank like Axis Bank, it's very easy to come in, get information. We can give you straight advice if we think it's a good idea or it's not a good idea for you to go for that particular property due to your cash flow in relation to the price of that property, But it can be done, and there are lots of places that you can, lots of companies that you can get your mortgages sorted from.
And if I may ask, what are the requirements to get a mortgage?
Okay, first of all, you have to have all positive credit checks. We need obviously a letter of offer from the property vendor. We need all receipts of all documents required in order for us to place a legal mortgage on the property. And if I can expatiate on that, the collateral when you go for a mortgage is actually the property. So if you default, what the bank does is takes the property, tries to sell it, and reimburse you whatever difference or whatever outstandings there are, We also need confirmation if you're an employee of a company. It's usually good to get confirmed employees. At least there's more of a chance they will be there and not get fired the next day, That's pretty much about it. And once all that is in place, we give you an offer letter, which you sign, and that's pretty much it.
I see. And what's the basic interest rate for mortgages here in Nigeria?
Now, this is where we have issues, because people look abroad, looking at your pound, you're probably getting your 2-3%, 4-5%, whatever. But we are currently working on 19%, 19%. However, 19% interest rate and 30% equity contribution. So you should bring in 30% of the total value of the property to show your contribution towards the property. It's important to note that these figures are negotiable. If you bring in 30, 40, 50%, for example, 50% of the property value, you can definitely negotiate for the interest rate to be brought down. So like I said, it's all negotiable. All depends on the risk factor involved. Unfortunately, the younger you are, higher your risk. But you know, it's all it is. Even if you go to the UK, once you get your first car, the insurance is sky high. The older you get, positive, less damages on the car, less you put in on your insurance, your premium comes down. It's a similar situation, so to speak. Yeah.
Thank you for
You're
coming
very
on our
welcome.
show.
You're very welcome.
I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Anytime.
Mortgage exists and is working. There are a lot of challenges with mortgage, but it's working, and is a major source of finance for home ownership. There are a number of institutions that you can approach for mortgage. The commercial bank, of course, will top the list. Then the mortgage banks themselves will top the list. But for those who are stationed in Nigeria, those who work in Nigeria, the National Housing Fund, through the Federal Mortgage Bank, is beginning to kick off. And it's working, but unfortunately, a lot of people don't just believe that something like that will work. It's working. I've been opportune to facilitate on behalf of our clients. So it works. Those are options for home ownership finance that are available in Nigeria. Then one other thing that people need to increasingly take into consideration is cooperative could be a major source of finance, as it is when people come together. They're a modified form of mortgage. They give you a short-term loan that you can keep renewing until the house is ready. Now, of all the options I mentioned for home ownership financing, one that I would really love to dwell on again, particularly if you're based in Nigeria, is the mortgage available under the National Housing Fund. Because a lot of people think it's not working. In fact, people don't bother to apply. And if you look at your payroll, you will notice that you've done some deduction under the NHF fund. The NHF fund is available, it's working. You only need to know how to go about it. So the first thing to do is you must have an account. You must have been remitting for a period of time. I think it's about 6 months to 1 year thereabout. Once you do that, under the National Housing Fund scheme, you can apply for mortgage loan from 0 to 15 million, depending on the type of apartment, depending on their basic underwriting criteria that you need to pass through. But that said, you would apply through a primary mortgage institution or a mortgage bank, or even a commercial bank in this sense. So once you apply, you would have the house you want to buy, you apply through the primary mortgage institution. It takes a while to process, but it's one of the cheapest source of fund. At the moment, it's about 6% plus maybe 1% margin that will be added by the mortgage bank. So that's the cheapest source of mortgage financing for any Nigerian that wants to get to buy his or her home, and it should be the first point of call. You should go after that first. So because there is delay in the process, maybe because it's a public sector driven initiative, what a lot of people do is to get commercial mortgage, either from a mortgage bank or from a commercial bank, and then to bridge that time, that gap. And then once the mortgage the mortgage is approved under the NHF or through Federal Mortgage Bank, they use it to refinance the commercial loan. This is a very smart move. It reduces your cost by more than 60%, and it's something you need to consider if you want to get your home in Nigeria.
Access Bank manager mentioned that if you have the correct documentation, you can get a loan to get your own house.
Yeah, that's correct. You need the documentation when you go to the bank. But let me just clarify two things.
Yes.
There are two types of investors, as you know. There are first-time buyers and there are seasoned investors. They're buy-to-let investors. A first-time buyer is someone who's buying his property or her property for the very first time. A seasoned investor is someone who buys a property to rent to tenant. And so if you're a first-time buyer or a seasoned investor, it's different kind of mortgage that you get.
Godwin, if I have a property and I'm buying property for the second time, but it is not for rentals, where do I fall? Because I'm not a first-time buyer. Do I still fall under the season?
If it's a second property, you are regarded as a seasoned investor. Yeah, if it's your first property, you're a first-time buyer.
Oh, so hi to the first-time buyers and hi to the seasoned buyers. Okay,
Yeah,
go
but
ahead.
you see, there are a lot of people. I mean, the numbers now there are about 17 million people in the UK, in Nigeria, who are first-time. I keep saying the UK. You should be correct.
No, Godwin has not been in Nigeria for a long time, so please bear with him.
Talking about the UK. Well,
Sorry.
17 million in Nigeria who are first-time buyers, even more. And so this program is quite poignant for them, you see. But let me just make one thing very clear. If you are a first-time buyer and you work, you could apply for a mortgage. The Mortgage Bank of Nigeria give out a loan. But before the Federal Mortgage Bank gives you a loan, they would require you to contribute 2.6% of your wages towards the National Housing Fund for at least 6 months. And if you've contributed for 6 months or more, you could apply for a mortgage. Now, these are the numbers. You'll be entitled to 15 million naira to be repaid within 30 years if you're a first-time buyer. And that's important.
Oh yeah, okay, that is right. And once you are 18 years old or above and you work in the public or private sector, you qualify. You totally qualify. Also, it is important to note that if the house loan you want is below 5 million, you do not need deposit towards the purchase price.
Property, correct. I think we need to explain that to our viewers. Look, if you're applying you're trying to buy a property and the property price is 5 million or below, you will get £5 million mortgage. You will not need to bring anything from your pocket. I keep saying
million naira.
Thank you.
It's okay, I'm here for you.
5 million naira, that's correct. So if the purchase price is 5 million naira or below, you would not need to make any contribution apart from the mortgage coming from the bank. If it's more than 5 million, then you have to make a contribution. So if it's between 6 million and 15 million, then you need to make a contribution of between 1% to 10% of the purchase price.
Okay, let's take a break, and when we come back, we'll be looking at the details of what you need to get that mortgage.
The Oakwood Property Show. The Oakwood Property Show. The Oakwood Property Show.
Welcome back. Before the interval, we said we'll be looking at the documents you need to have with you before you can apply for the mortgage.
That's correct. If you're a buy-to-let investor who is looking to buy properties to rent out to tenant,
Oh wait, guys, you need to get a pen and paper so you can write down.
I think they have that already. Well, the first thing is if they're working, they need to produce 3 months' wages. The bank will want to say that they have the capacity to be able to pay that mortgage, you see. And so they want to make sure you're not living a
The
life of
wage slip, actually.
wage slip.
Yeah,
exactly.
before you take all your money.
The wage slip, absolutely. Yeah. They want to make sure you're not living a life of penury, you see. So you have the ability to pay the mortgage. So they look at your 3 months pay slip. They would also, if you're self-employed, so you're running a business, they will see your 3 years set of account to see the income and outflow of funds. They would look at that. They would also...
Sorry, Jemai. This is also important for people who don't have the documentation ready. If you want to apply in like 3 years, this is the time for you to start.
Start preparing, start gathering those documentary evidence the bank would need. You also would need some kind of utility bill that you pay your bills. Yes. And that bill should tie to where you live. Yes. That's one of the things. You need 2 references from your employers and your BVN.
And then if you own your own business?
If you own your own business, established customers, business customers will be able to give... Well, thanks very much for drawing that to my attention. So that's fundamental. If you are running a business, you're not out of the loop. You could still benefit from a mortgage. All you have to do is go to your customers and established corporate customers who will give you a reference and then give it to your bank. Yeah. And they would assess this document to be able to give you a mortgage. If you're a first-time buyer and you want to acquire your home under the National Housing Fund, there are 2 registration forms you need. the NHF1 and the NHF2. Now, the NHF1, you have to have that completed by your employer, and you complete the NHF2. So you need those documents all completed. You would also need evidence of your monthly contribution made to the National Housing Funds, paid to the Federal Mortgage Bank. You need all of that. And you need evidence of satisfaction of regular income. So you need to show that you're receiving income regularly. Those documents are fundamental. If you have those documents, you'll get your mortgage from the National Housing Funds.
Well, it is very important for you to have the right documentation for you to be able to get the mortgage. So the time has come for us to find out what people on the streets have to say and who else gets us better views than Kemi. I don't know how she does it, but she's just amazing. Let's go to the street and find out what people in Lagos say about mortgage.
To interview a lot more citizens on what they know about mortgages and all that. Just come with us. What do you understand by mortgages?
Mortgages. I don't really know much about it. But I know it's in your house, or I don't know. You can tell me. I don't really know about it.
I don't think so. Mortgages, I guess, is when you pay little, to any house after a particular a certain amount of years or something.
No, I don't know much about mortgage.
You don't have any idea at all?
No, I don't have any idea about.
So if anybody tells you about mortgage, what comes to your mind?
Only the mortgage I know is more. Anyway, it's a kind of a real estate or something like that.
Mortgage? I don't have any idea of that, so I don't want to push further.
Mortgage?
Yes.
Mortgage is just a form of a type of, will I say, loan, whereby somebody buys the property, but there's a spread payment, like a facility, where like a financial institution grants to give the person.
Welcome back. It is important to note that not so many people in Nigeria are familiar with the mortgage system in Nigeria, and that is why this program is very, very important. So it can give you the relevant information, you, the viewers.
I find it shocking that in Nigeria, 5% of the 13.7 million property transactions is mortgage transaction, 5%. In the UK, it's ridiculous. Only 5% in Nigeria. In the UK, it's 95% transactions.
Godwin, what do you think is the problem? Are we the problem, or is it the banks that don't want to give us the loans? Like, what's happening? Why aren't they giving us the mortgage loans?
I think there is an issue there with the banks here in Nigeria. There's an issue of getting funds in the capital market. And also, people in the streets are not aware of mortgages. So if you don't know, you don't apply. And that's why this program is fundamental. Mortgages is not the only way you could raise funds. You could also get a loan from house builders. If a house is being built by a developer, you could go to the developer, and some developers are happy to give you a private loan. It's called a private mortgage. When the property is being developed, you could see the sign, 5 flats being developed, 6 detached properties being developed by X and Co. Developers. So it would say there, and in the signboard it would say, seller finance. The moment you see the word seller financed, it means private mortgage. In other words, it means that the developers would give you a mortgage as if the developer themselves are the banks. And the fundamental advantage here is that you don't need to have those documents I've mentioned earlier. You don't need to have any of that because you have the land. And what the developers would do is they'll give you the mortgage and put a charge on the property until you finish paying. And then they'll remove the charge, in which case the property belongs to you.
Well, that is an eye-opener, Godwin. Thank you so much. Let's take a break, and when we come back, we will turn our attention to our segment that we call Side Attraction.
The Okri Property Show. The Okri Property Show. The Okri Property Show.
All right, welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. My name is still Fiona Kirabo, and I'm with Godwin, and this is Talks, the Okri Property Show. Let's turn our attention right now to side attraction. There's a lady that sang goodbye. It's the saddest part that I have had, and I hate goodbyes. I honestly hate goodbyes. This is like the worst part of the show, and we're normally so pained.
I know it's so pained, but the hope is that they will see us again, isn't it? So
the show comes to an end.
It does. Look, if you've missed anything, you could check it out on www.
And you can also find us on social media, as you can see on our screens. We're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, and we are on Instagram.
And also on YouTube.
Yes, Godwin. Yes. There's something I'm so excited about on the show that I think people also need to be excited about. Guess what that is?
What is it?
It is the quiz, guys.
Oh, of course it's the quiz.
We're going to be having a quiz on this show, and you're going to be winning so much. You need to be waiting. You need to be looking out for it. You need to be...
Absolutely. You need to follow the show. Follow this show. You know, in future we're going to be introducing quizzes where you can win a lot of prizes, a lot of giveaways.
Okay, guys, we'll see you next time. We love you. I am Fiona Kirabo.
And of course, I'm Godwin Okri.
God bless
Goodbye.
you.
Sure. Show.
Brought to you by Menvo Homes Limited. Your authority on property investments around the world.
The Okri Property Show.